Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam Ullman-White, and I'm the Student Engagement Coordinator here at UNB within the Student Affairs and Services Department. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so excited to be welcoming you to our webinar today. First of all, welcome to UNB. We're super excited that you're able to join us for accessing financial supports for success. We're expecting to have some students here tonight, as well as some parents and supporters, and to be tuning in from here in New Brunswick, but also across Canada and around the world. We're thrilled that you're here. Shelley and Heather are going to walk you through a variety of options for funding your education, and we'll also answer some of your questions when they finish their presentation. Please put any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the session. Before we go any further, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that UNB stands on unsurrendered and unceded traditional Wolastoqey land. The lands of the Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our university on both campuses, and I can see out my window here, is known as the Wolastoq, along which live Wolastoqey, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. Wolastoq is also called the Saint John River. One more thing, I believe territorial acknowledgements are important, but in order for that acknowledgement to really be meaningful, there needs to be commitment to action. And the action that I'm going to commit to right now, and is part of my commitment in my work right now, is to continue to work through a really cool collection of resources online called the Wabanaki Collection, which is helping me to better understand Wabanaki worldviews, culture, and history. And I hope that you'll consider what your action is in terms of continuing this path towards right relations. I now would like to invite Shelley Clayton and Heather Stafford to kick off accessing financial supports for success.
Welcome, everyone. I'm glad everyone could join us tonight. Heather and I are dealing with some thunderstorms here in New Brunswick, so I don't know if that will affect our glitching in the presentation. So if you can't hear me or you can't hear Heather, we certainly can repeat anything. Just put the question in the Q&A and we'll make sure that we respond directly. So my name is Shelley Clayton. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at the University of New Brunswick. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your night to participate in this event. And I'd like to introduce Heather Stafford. Heather.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Stafford. I am the Student Success Coordinator here on the Saint John campus. I also do financial aid for students in Saint John. So good evening, everyone. Maybe it's morning where you are. But yeah, if we do glitch out, please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll be happy to address those.
Thank you, Heather. And Trevor will go to the next slide. So a lot of people always ask me kind of what is the purpose of financial aid and how do we help students? And so I actually designed a mandate that I hope is succinct and gives you a bit more information on what we're about. So our mandate is to increase opportunities for and access to university by helping students and their families seek, obtain, and make the best use of all financial resources. As such, the Financial Aid Office of UNB Fredericton plays an integral role in supporting the university's mission and goals of recruiting and retaining a talented and diverse undergraduate and graduate student population. So I just want to clarify one thing before I move to the next slide. I provide support to Fredericton and Moncton, and Heather provides support to Saint John. So that's why we're making a combined presentation tonight. And Trevor will go to the next slide. So a lot of people ask me kind of what are the supports available. And so I did kind of a breakdown of, a good, list of places. And I believe Miriam is going to post my presentation so you guys don't have to worry about taking notes. So government student loans and grants, it's a whole different process, really since 2000. In reference to government student loans and grants, there's a lot more free money available to support your post-secondary education in the Canadian system. We will also talk about private student loans. I don't know if there's any international students joining us tonight, but I can speak to specific questions in reference to US-based loans and supports that are available for our American students. And some of other ways of supporting your education may be a professional or a line of credit. So for students who don't receive enough, maybe in student loans, or maybe they, have limited resources, they might have to access something from the banking industry. Bank loans, internal and external scholarships are really a great thing to supplement your education because it's non-repayable and it's based on your grade point average, so it looks great on your resume. Internal and external bursaries, which is what Heather and I deal with. So Heather and I really focus on the needs-based living. So if you're struggling to pay for things financially, we provide bursary support to assist you. And Heather and I also participate in a program called Work Study, which is part-time employment on campus. And the reason we participate in it is because we try to lessen the playing field so that students who are in financial need also get access to part-time work on campus. And it's a valuable work because it's career-related work. So it's something to help build your resume while you're studying full-time, and you work no more than 10 hours a week. And I'll get to that overview of work study very shortly in the slide. In summer savings, a lot of students are able to work during the summer and hopefully save some of the resources to help support your educational expenses. Registered education savings plans, I have information in one of my booklets that Miriam will be sharing in the chat feature that should answer some RESP questions, trust funds, crowdfunding. Basically, crowdfunding is where you go and you try and get others to support your educational experience. There are vouchers in a lot of provinces for when you volunteer that you're able to get a voucher towards your post-secondary education. So you don't necessarily get cash in hand, but you actually are able to use the vouchers to pay for post-secondary education. We also have band and sponsorship funding. And so for those students who have support through, your own maybe guarantor, that's a great way to fund your educational experience. And we also talk about co-op, paid internships internally and externally. And just reach out to find all the community organizations like Lion Clubs, churches, nonprofits. So financial support from a lot of community organizations exist. And I'm sure there's others. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a starting place on where to begin. And Miriam, I see, is putting in the chat just to highlight to everyone, both Heather and my general email, should you want to reach out and ask us questions directly. And so we'll go to the next slide. So a lot of people ask me, what is the average cost of education at UNB, in particular parents, because they want to, kind of process what type of resources that we have to prepare for the academic year. And I just put in here a little bit of information about financial consent. And Heather and I are, obligated to respect financial consent. If you are attending the University of New Brunswick, you must give your parents permission to talk with us. And so Heather and I are happy to talk to parents. And in fact, we do that on a regular everyday basis, but we must have consent from the student who's actually attending, even if you're under the age of majority. So just make sure you complete that consent, financial consent section. And I've got the hyperlink here, and Miriam again will share the presentation. So next slide. So I'm just giving you a little bit of overview on Bachelor of Arts, and I just thought I'd start with some general programs. So this would be true of arts and science. So if you're a new student who is just beginning, your average would be about 9205. If you're a returning student, it would be 8517. If you're a new international student, it would be slightly over 20,640.50. And an international student legacy, which is a returning student, it would be 19,951.50. And I believe, Heather, I'll get you online because I think the next slide is your general list of costs. And Trevor will go to the next one. Yes, perfect. Heather, if you want to go a little bit on that.
Sure thing. So for the Bachelor Arts and Tuition, and Bachelor of Arts program, tuition and fees for UNB Saint John. So the arts and science for a new student would be $9,135.50. So a returning student for arts and science is $8,447. International students that are new students, $20,571. And international students for returning students would be $19,882.
Excellent, Trevor. We'll go to the next one. So in this one just talks about cost of attendance. Should you be able to live in residence? I just use this as an average because a lot of people say to me, Shelley, what kind of cost should I prepare for financially? So we know from the previous slide, if you're a Canadian or domestic student, you should have at least $9,000 set aside for tuition and fees. Then if you're living away from your parents, averagely you should have about 13,000. And I just use residence costs, but if you're living in an apartment or if you're sharing with a roommate, it could be substantially less. It really depends on how far away from Fredericton you live. So the further you live from outside of the central region, the cheaper the rents may be. But then you have in kind of the catch-22 where then you have to worry about transportation costs. And textbooks, equipment, and supplies, it really is all over the place. And there's two reasons why, because I give a range. So in engineering, your textbooks and nursing may be as high as 2,000. In your art program, it could be between 600 and 1,000. And in certain sciences like engineering, mathematics, it could be as high as 2,000. It also depends on if you're a tactile learner. Do you need to have the textbook to look at in order to, do your best studying? Is that your best habit? Or are you able to go to the library? Are you able to borrow it, take the notes that you need from the book, or photocopy what is necessary? We have an excellent program that we run through our student union in Fredericton, which is called the UNB Book Buy and Sell, where you can actually purchase used textbooks from your peers, your students here at UNB who want to sell their textbooks and, kind of get a little bit of resources, or you can buy new, whichever is your preference. We also give an average here on local travel. Are you a bus taker? Do you grab cabs? Do you have your own gas costs that you have to worry about? Return travel. So these are averages. This does not mean it's applicable to everyone, but this just gives you an average of what our students are spending. Miscellaneous, entertainment. So this would be your catch-all category. If you go out to Tim Hortons and you get a coffee each day, you're looking at $2 to $3 per day, which, can add up to $15 per week. So it's the little things that tend to add up that students often don't think about until they actually start writing down their budget. If you do have a vehicle, maybe you're going to have to access a parking on campus. And if so, there's the parking fee. So then if you add your tuition costs of slightly over 9,000 for domestic, with potential living away from home costs of 18 to 20,000, you're looking at 26 to 28,000 for living and tuition fees, textbooks all in. If you rent and able to reduce your costs that way, that might be, a little bit cheaper for you. Could be 23, 24,000. And we'll go to the next slide, Trevor. So a lot of students ask me about government student loans and grants as well as parents. So I always have some slides in here to give you some averages. So if you're a New Brunswick resident, we have the New Brunswick Integrated Loan Program. And in red, that is what I have put in for bursaries. So provincial bursaries and Canada Student Grant, that red is good. It means it's non-repayable assistance. And in this particular province, we're very fortunate that we also have the renewed tuition bursary. So if you're a New Brunswick resident, you might qualify for up to $7,200 under the Canada Student Grant renewed tuition bursary. Traditionally, for the provincial bursary, only married students or students with dependents also qualify for the provincial bursary, just because it is based on financial need, and it tends to be people with higher needs that qualify for the provincial bursary. And this would be applicable regardless of what campus you went to. So if you go to Saint John, Fredericton, Moncton, or any school at all, these are your maximums in reference to New Brunswick. And we'll go to the next slide. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what was a renewed tuition bursary. So we're very fortunate again in this province that we have some grant that the provincial government has said we want students who are struggling financially to have a little bit more extra free money in order to go to school. And they tend to look at incomes 60,000 or less in reference to qualifying for the Canada Student Grant for students with full-time studies. That doesn't mean you might not qualify for a portion of the grant if your income is higher. And we'll go to the next slide. So we may have some attendees from Nova Scotia. So I wanted to talk also about the Nova Scotia student loan maximums. We have the Canada Student Grant again of $4,200. And we also have loans available, which are mobile. You can borrow from the government and go to any school across Canada or any accepted school, like a foreign school as well would qualify. Nova Scotia students would qualify for assistance. And we'll go to the next slide. And hopefully we have some people here from Newfoundland and Labrador. We also have the maximum allowables here for this province. And Canada Student Grant, again, is $4,200. And then we have also mobile loans, which you can borrow. The one thing about Newfoundland and Labrador, if you are in a program that you don't have available within your home province, or it was oversubscribed in your home province, and you had to take your program outside of Newfoundland and Labrador, you might qualify for a provincial bursary. And that is something you can certainly talk to Heather and I about, or you can talk directly to a Newfoundland and Labrador student aid. And we'll go to the next slide. In Prince Edward Island, just wanted to have the maximum allowables here as well for PEI. Canada Student Grant, again, $4,200. Canada Student Loan and Provincial Student Loan, so a little over $21,000 in order for students to leave their province of PEI and study in New Brunswick. Then we'll go to the next slide. And I just wanted to also represent Ontario Student Loan Program, or you guys may know it as OSAP. So Canada Student Grant as well applies with the OSAP. And we have combined what is called the Ontario Student Loan, but it's an integrated federal and provincial loan. And so we're looking at slightly over $21,000 as well to study outside of Ontario. And I believe we're going to one last slide. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Canada Student Grant for students with permanent disabilities or disabilities. Last year, the government changed their language on what is accepted for disabilities. And so it doesn't have to be permanent. It could be persistent or chronic disability as well. And for students who are eligible, they would be eligible for up to $2,800 per year for free money, which is grants for living costs. Students with disabilities could also apply for up to $20,000 per year to cover exceptional related costs such as tutors, note takers, sign interpreters, technical aids, including computers. So the maximum amount of computer you can get is 4,000, but that's a pretty, respectable computer for 4,000. I've put the hyperlink in here for the program so you can take a little bit more of a review and, kind of read the boundaries of this program. I'm gonna go to the next slide. And so a lot of people say to me, Shelley, it's easier to get something from the bank. It's quite a hassle to get, to complete the applications for government student loans. And I just put this slide in to encourage you that it's worth the effort. Most student loan applications for a first-time person through would take 20 to 25 minutes. Just because you're not familiar with the questions and you're not quite sure what they're asking, it could take slightly longer if you're thinking about, what they're asking of you. But either way you slice it, government student loans do not require a guarantor. A government student loans, you don't have to pay interest while you're in school. Any bank loan, any line of credit, anything that has a revolving credit, you would have to pay interest. And with government student loans, you have 6 months after leaving post-secondary, and some provinces, New Brunswick is one of them, do not charge you interest on your federal or provincial student loans during that 6-month period. So we're very fortunate this way. And the repayment of any bank loan, any non-government loan, you're paying not only interest while you're in school, you're also paying immediately, always, as soon as you get the loan. Repayment help, we're very fortunate that the federal government or the Canadian government also has to provide some supports. There might be loan forgiveness, there might be reduction in interest, there might be some positives when you get into the repayment cycle that are just not available for private loans. Although it varies by the loan provider, it's really difficult to access any help, which is hard because if you don't get a job right away, it's certainly a bit of a struggle. And I'm not trying to convince you either way. I just want you to have access to free money while you're in school through the Canada Student Grants, or, if you have to borrow through the provincial or federal loan programs. And we'll go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about needs-based funding open to Fredericton and Moncton campus students, and then Heather will talk about Saint John supports as well. So we'll go to the next slide. So as I mentioned about the work-study program, it is a subsidized employment program designed for students who are seeking financial support with the cost of post-secondary education. Right now, you work no more than 10 hours per week, and the minimum or the standard wage is $16.47 per hour. It may change, but this is of the time of posting, what we know. I've put the link for work study, but it will not open for a couple more weeks, but you certainly are welcome to apply when it does open. Work study is a program opportunity open to undergraduate, graduate students, domestic or international. And we'll go to the next slide. For the Fredericton and Moncton campus, we have the UNB Special Bursary Program. So any Canadian student can apply for up to $1,000 in bursary assistance. So bursaries, grants, scholarships, anything like that is non-repayable, and you want to have as much in your post-secondary life as you can get in that realm. It's open to undergraduate Canadian or domestic students registered at UNB Fredericton or Moncton on a full-time basis and have demonstrated financial need. And people ask me, how do you do that? We do require a budget. The deadline is November 15th, and that's annually. And applications, I have listed our link to the applications. Applications will not be posted to September 1st because we use bursaries in a way to help students as they're studying. So they're not like scholarships, they're not forward thinking. We have bursaries to assist you exactly when you need assistance. And we'll go to the next slide. And in Fredericton and Moncton, we also have the Dr. Florence T. Snodgrass bursary for New Brunswick students. So you can apply to receive up to $2,000 in bursary assistance. And as I mentioned, it's only open to New Brunswick residents. You have to be registered on a full-time basis and have demonstrated financial need. So if you look at both of our bursaries in Fredericton and Moncton, you can combine applications, apply for both the Dr. Florence T. Snodgrass and bursary assistance for UNB special bursary, and you can apply for up to $3,000 each and every year. These are annual supports. And we'll go to the next slide. And we have specific Indigenous student funding bursaries. I have a website, which is listed at the very end here, in assistance to help students who are Indigenous. And can international students apply to the Dr. Florence T. Snodgrass bursary? No, as I mentioned earlier, it's only for New Brunswick residents. Miriam will share as I continue to present. I've developed a PDF for international students, and she'll share that in the chat feature. All right. And maybe she shared it already. So for Indigenous student funding, we have specific scholarships and bursaries to assist students in their post-secondary studies. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is now Heather.
Thanks, Shelley. So in Saint John, we do also have a UNB work study program. So work study is a subsidized employment program designed for students. It's similar to Fredericton, however, there are some differences. Students can work on campus for up to a maximum of 10 hours a week and a standard wage of $16.47 per hour, which includes your benefits. The work study program is being managed now through Experience UNB, and our applications will be open in August this year. We're still working towards completing the changeover to Experience UNB platform. So the date hasn't been set as of yet, but we are working very, very hard to get it up and running for, I would say, mid-August. So if you have any questions come August, you can always reach out to me via email, and we will also have the link posted to our external website once it's available. You can go to the next slide, Trevor. So in Saint John, our bursary program runs a little bit differently. We have what's called our general bursary program. So that is an application that is open and left open throughout the year. So Saint John campus undergraduate and graduate students may be eligible for non-repayable bursaries who can demonstrate financial need. These bursaries are designed to supplement, not replace other forms of funding and resources. So some bursaries do have certain eligibility criteria, such as your applicant city, the region, or your program of study. So part-time bursaries are for students who have not been full-time within the last 12 months. And the online application will be open for the fall 2023 academic year on August 14th, and will be posted on our UNB Saint John Financial Aid website, which is linked here. And I believe that Miriam will share that. I will note that international students can apply, but just keep in mind that it's usually most of our bursaries that are donor funded are for domestic students. We do have very limited funding, so depending on the financial need and the situation, we look at everybody individually, and then we assess and see how we can assist. Go ahead, Trevor, with our next slide. And then we also run a special bursary program in Saint John. So this runs in January of each year. Students may be eligible for up to $1,000 in bursary assistance if they meet the following criteria. So you need to be a registered full-time undergraduate only student. Part-time students with a registered disability may also be considered. if they meet the student aid guidelines. All undergraduate students, regardless of citizenship, so it's open to international and domestic. You've demonstrated a financial need and you are in good academic standing. So you must have a 2.0 GPA or higher. So the application's open on January 1st, 2024, and the deadline will be January 26th. We mainly do this to assist students who, I guess a lot of students with student loans, they get 60% of the funding in the fall and then 40 in the winter, and sometimes there's shortfalls and sometimes the student loan gets delayed and there's various reasons. So we found that having this special bursary program in the January will assist students, many students that come into some financial distress. And you can go ahead with the next slide, Trevor. I think that's you, Shelley.
Thanks, Heather. And we're going to talk about scholarships a little bit. They're merit-based. They're open to all campuses. And Trevor will go to the next slide. So Heather and I do work very closely with the Undergraduate Awards Office, who administer our merit-based or GPA-driven awards. However, it is the Undergraduate Awards Office that specifically give out scholarships. Heather and I, although we work very closely with the office, we deal with needs-based funding. There may be, a GPA component to our needs-based funding opportunities. But if you're looking at meritorious scholarships based on like A to A plus level, that would be the link here under Money Matters scholarships. And each and every year, students would apply for scholarships. And I think sometimes students forget, like the bursaries, you have to submit an annual application. So for returning students, I know most of you are entering students, but next year returning student deadline would be April 15th for regardless of whether you're Saint John, Moncton, or Fredericton campus student. To apply for merit-based scholarships, you would submit your application by April 15th and just put that in your day timer. So every year you just do it automatically. Our Undergraduate Awards Office Executive Director's name is Rochelle Corey. She could not be here tonight, but I happily will field some questions if you have any later on. And we'll go to the next slide. So I also like to, and you guys don't, again, have to take notes. Miriam has a domestic document, which she will post to the website, which is called Money Matters for Myself. And I also have an international student document, which Miriam will post as well. The Universities Canada, it could be both international and Canadian students who can receive scholarships. This is not an inclusive list. These are just some places to start you and get you familiar with some scholarship opportunities you might be eligible for. Wyconic, again, this is open to domestic and international students. So I've listed both of those. I'm going to go to the next slide. Scholarship candidates tend to be more domestic students, but I do believe they have one or two. And Inspire is specifically for students who are our First Nation students or Indigenous students. So that would be eligible for post-secondary scholarship and bursary support for them. And we'll go to the next slide. And for Indigenous students, there's also Indigenous bursary search tool, which our students have found very helpful. So I posted there that as well. And our disability awards, we have in Canada a disability awards website, which I have posted there, that has awards open to students with disabilities on an annual basis. And we'll go to the next slide. So I just put down some interesting facts. I found them interesting. I hope you will as well. So University of Canada enrollment. So 1.4 million students at Canadian universities in 2022. So there are about 1,116,000 full-time and 299 part-time students in 2022. I thought that was incredible. We have quite a feat in having students enrolled in post-secondary education. And I just put down there, who I get the statistics from. And I'll go to the next slide. And so labor force data general statistics, 2.1 million new jobs between March 2012 and March 2022. So that's fabulous that we have over 2.1 million new jobs, but they were created for university graduates. So I often have this debate when I present. A lot of students saying, do the university degrees still hold value in our economics status of today? And they absolutely do. And this is bar none a positive statistic that shows that even though financially, undertaking a post-secondary education can be financially daunting, it is worth it. 3 times as many as those created for graduates of all types of post-secondary education combined. So, we are really changing as a society, and it's almost becoming more and more necessary to have post-secondary education. And we'll go to the next slide. And so this is from Labor Force Data General Statistics. So 65K art graduates, and people always tell me art students, it's not a degree worth taking. My undergraduate was in art, so I'd say yes, it is. So art grads do earn great incomes or good incomes. Social sciences and humanity grads share in the income premium for universities graduates. For example, full-time workers with degrees in history earn an average above $65,000 annually. So a lot of people will say to me, why is that? And I would say universally, employers will say that they enjoy the critical thinking. They enjoy the fact that students are able to catch on to things quicker, understand things. So it's the flexibility that comes from the post-secondary education, the higher level of thinking, the critical thinking processes. These are things that that employers are looking for to employ students. And we'll go to another slide. So labor force data general statistics, 56% benefit from hands-on learning. And what we're talking about hands-on learning, one of the examples we talked about tonight is work study. Because work study, as Heather and I spoke about, is career-related hands-on learning. I myself have a graduate student that I employ in the MBA program who helps me with statistics and research, who's beyond fabulous from India, and she is, one of my top-notch workers. So experiential learning, co-ops, internships, service learning are all fabulous parts of your education. And we also run here through the Fredericton and Moncton campus, as does Heather in Saint John as well. We run what is called student abroad bursaries for students who are doing exchange or off-campus studies. I believe Heather connects with a different person in Saint John who runs the program, but we definitely have bursary support for students who want to do an international exchange or off-campus study. It's a fabulous way to build your resume and have a lifetime of experiences. And we'll go to the next slide. So trends in employment after graduation. I actually got this fabulous slide from my fabulous student assistant. And so it talks about the employment rate in Canada in 2021 by educational attainment. I just want to, bring home the fact that education is indeed worth it. Again, you guys don't have to take notes. This is going to be there for you to take a look at later. And we'll go to the next slide. So the next slide is going to be contacts for Heather and myself. So I am listed alone at the moment as Shelley Clayton, Director of Financial Aid. I am in the process of hiring a financial aid coordinator, and as soon as that has been solidified, I will put that person contact as well. And I just want to clarify before Heather comes back on that I provide support across all 3 campuses for our American students. So I am what is known in the American system as a designated primary authority or DPA. And Heather will let you talk.
No worries. So I guess the next slide, Trevor. So financial aid in Saint John is actually just me. And my contact information is there. So if you do want to reach out, you can either, I can do it via Teams, we can have an appointment, in person, whatever you prefer. You can always even just pick up the phone and give me a call. So we work Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And other than holidays in the summertime, you can always usually reach someone. And if you have any questions, I guess that would be our next slide.
So Heather and I are happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So I don't know if Marion want to read out the questions. So is there any in-campus job availability for new international students? Absolutely. We have the work study program. And I'm not allowed to talk a lot about the work permit, but you do know yourself from reading your work permit, you're able to work on campus. So you can apply for work study, you can apply for part-time employment on campus. I'll let Heather speak about her own part-time opportunities, but what I find a lot of international students do as well to supplement their income is they work at events. So they might work, if there's a hockey game, selling tickets, but they just have a little bit more flexibility. Like I said, I'm very blessed to have a great worker, which I grabbed her up and I have continued to employ her because she's fabulous.
So in Saint John, oh, sorry, Shelley.
No, go right ahead. I was just going to say, and to Heather.
No worries. Okay, so in Saint John, it's the same for international students. You can work on campus up to 10 hours a week. I thought there was something that had changed with the province recently that they can actually work more than that. Is it not 20 hours a week, Shelley? Correct me if I'm wrong. Or...
It is 20 hours a week, and I can only say that because Jason has given me the wording for it. So I believe it's in effect till December of 2023. It might get extended. I'm not sure, but yes.
We do have our international student advising office, both on the Saint John campus and in Fredericton. In Saint John, Osa Kellyberg is our international student advisor, and she knows a lot about work permits and different criteria that you must meet if you're an international student. There are a lot of students that do work off campus as well. I'm not sure. I would have to check with OSA, to be honest. So we can always, I could drop OSA's email in the chat for you, and you could give her a quick side email just asking her. But I will tell you, any positions in Saint John are posted on our Experience UNB platform, which I believe that Marianne has already shared in the chat. So our Experience UNB platform, you would log in with your student credentials, and all jobs are posted for both campuses. So you can actually filter by campus in there. You can just put filter by Saint John, and it will show you all the openings in there. So there are some departments that will skip me and go directly to Experience UNB, and they might have a summer position. So I always have students go there and keep an eye on that. You would apply directly through the portal, through the Experience UNB platform with your resume. You would have that uploaded. And every student has access to all of these great jobs and opportunities. There's also workshops and events that happen throughout the year with employment. So Saint John will be planning a career fair in early fall, as well as the Fredericton campus. And then we do it again and bring in employers from all over the city, both cities, and both students from both campuses can attend both, because you may want to have a summer job in Saint John, but you might go to UNB Fredericton or vice versa. So we will be planning career fairs, and there's also employer information sessions that will happen on campus. We could have a very large employer in the city that just says, listen, I need some students. I'm looking for 30 students. Can you get me a table? and we'll book a room and we'll advertise through the student news and through our student unions and student representative council Instagram and Facebook pages, and you will be told all of this through your orientation when you get here, on where to look for upcoming events and things that will really help with your job search. And there's lots of resources on our career development and employment services website, or SharePoint site, pardon me. There's an external website as well, but most of it is once you're a student, you have access to everything from resume writing workshops to building a LinkedIn profile to interview skills. So it's really informative, and our director is fabulous. So anyway, that's kind of the lowdown on a little bit of employment on campus.
Awesome.
And Maren, before we go to the questions, can I just clarify, just in case we have
Yeah.
any transfer students or students for January, all the employment opportunities, you must be here. So if you're not going to be registered to January, we do have a January intake for our work study as well as part-time employment in January. So don't worry, you haven't lost out on anything. But just to verify, you do have to be registered here as a student on both campuses. That would be applicable. So I just want to clarify that one thing, and then hit me with the questions, Marianne.
All right. So I did have a question just really quickly that is a quick answer for me. I had a question about when's the first day of class and when do I need to be on campus? The first day of class is Wednesday, September 6th. And that being said, you should be here on Saturday, September 2nd for the Fredericton campus. That's when we start our orientation. And Heather, do you know when orientation starts on Saint John?
Yeah, so on the weekend, so the September 2nd, that's actually just for resident students. Our orientation for all students not staying in residence, so you may live off campus, you will start on Monday, which is actually Labor Day, September 4th. So even though the campus isn't open, there will be lots of events planned in Saint John. So all that information will be posted on our website, and you'll receive emails. The first email goes out, I guess, next week to you all. So you will have lots of notice and lots of information coming your way, and it will be posted on our external website. You can just Google UNB Saint John orientation, new student orientation, and everything is listed there.
Well, thank
The
you.
full schedule will be posted as soon as it's available, which we're aiming for the 1st of August.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I just want to acknowledge that we do only have 12 minutes, so we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. But if folks do continue to have questions, we'll make sure that the emails to reach out to are in the chat before we leave again. So the first one here I've got is, can the meal plan be paid with a scholarship?
Absolutely. So are we talking external scholarship or internal scholarship? So if we're talking internal, like if we're talking from UNB, the undergraduate awards office places your scholarship split in the fall term and in the winter term. So it's already on your student account and you can use it to pay tuition fees, residence. It's really up to you. If we're talking about external scholarship or sponsorship money, they will want proof of forthcoming funds. So if you have a letter or if you have an email or something to confirm that you have forthcoming funds, financial services the they. So they will definitely support you if they have proof.
Awesome, thank you. I have another question. How do I set up my student bank account?
So are we talking international student maybe?
I don't know.
Because most Canadian students would have a bank account, and good news, that PDF is one you might want to take a look at, and the information would be applicable for any international student on Saint John or Fredericton. So there is information about banking in there. It's really a financial literacy and funding document, and that's part of financial literacy, setting up a bank account.
Awesome, thanks. I will put those documents back in the chat again.
Okay.
After I ask this next question. Hi, I applied for a scholarship a couple of months ago, and I was wondering if I would get any news.
So a lot of people are asking Heather and I that in
Yeah.
particular. I would say we get that on a regular basis. I believe Rochelle has given the deadline of August as the ultimate, August 15th is the ultimate deadline, in particular if you're a transfer student. So, or you can reach out, and Miriam, if you wouldn't mind typing this in to awards, AWARDS, awards@umb.ca. If you don't want to wait, you can just reach out and ask them.
Yeah, you can ask the status of your application.
Yep.
The hostel. Oh, sorry, Marion. I just saw a question come in and it caught me off guard.
Yeah, just a reminder to folks, if you have a question, to try and put it in the Q&A section, not in the chat, because we're going to be working through the Q&A right now. But we did see, when does the hostel open for students? So I'll leave that to you folks to.
I feel like that might be our residents for UNB Saint John. I guess move-in weekend. It happens on the Saturday, September the 2nd. If you require coming to campus sooner, you will need to get special permission. So you would email the residence life coordinator, or Jamie's title in Saint John, Jamie Yonker is her name. But I'm not sure of her title, but you can, it's on the external website. You can just Google UNB Saint John residence, and you will have contact information there, and you can just email them and request permission. Sometimes there's students that might play sports and they need to be there a week sooner. You can request that information or that special permission.
Yeah, I
So-
will say, if you are applying for residence, or if you're hoping to live in residence, you do need to make sure you've applied for it. I know residence spaces are filling up quickly and or full at certain locations already. So if you don't have a residence room already locked up, you'll want to make sure you're either on the wait list or that you're finding somewhere else to live in the city. So do make sure you've got that living arrangements thing sorted out for yourself before you arrive.
ASAP,
Mhm.
I would recommend.
A next question. On which website will the recording and documents be shared? That's a great question, and it will be on the orientation pages for Saint John and Fredericton, likely on the SOAR page for Fredericton. Is it the same for Saint John, Heather?
So the SOAR page, so we have like our new student, we have fall orientation, so we'll share it on that, I believe.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, on both, it'll be on an orientation page, but for Fredericton, it will be on SOAR specifically. Okay, next question. I've already received an entry-level scholarship based on first high school term transcript. My GPA is now higher with all my courses. Wondering if the scholarship can be kind of redone with the new transcript.
I'll field that one because I
Yeah.
get that question repeatedly.
Mhm.
So as I say to every student, it always helps to send your final transcript. I cannot guarantee you will get more money, but the email that Miriam has supplied, awards@umb.ca, send your final transcript to that. I will tell you on the positive note, I got my own daughter to do that, and yes, she did get more money, but I can't guarantee it. So
Awesome,
Worth a
thank you.
try.
worth a
sure.
try.
Yeah.
The next one, how and where do I apply for government student loans?
So that is a complex one. So Miriam has put in the website there, or I'm not sure where you posted it, my Money Matters document. So I have a general email, or not email, I'm sorry, web link for if you don't know your home province or your home residency. And if you do know your home province and residency, I have examples posted there as well. So easy way, go to the Money Matters document and you should be able to find your home province. And traditionally, your home province is listed as the last place you have lived for 12 consecutive months, not being away for more than 31 days. And for most people who are in attendance, you just look at where did you graduate high school? That's most likely your home province.
I just wanted to add to that if I could.
Mhm.
I did drop in the chat. It's the Student Financial Assistant Handbook for 2023-2024 academic year. So it's the province of New Brunswick. It was the one that I just had on hand, but I would assume, Shelley, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, would each province have their own handbook?
They do.
Yes.
They do. However, as with every Canadian province, it is complex and layered, so it's harder to find in some provinces than others.
I do know too, one thing I wanted to note is that in, I guess for New Brunswick, I'm very familiar with New Brunswick. I'm still fairly new at the role, so pardon me, maybe Shelley is the expert here. But one application in your province of residence, you're actually assessed for financial aid through provincial and federal loans, correct?
That is correct. Heather's correct. So since we're using New Brunswick as an example, when you submit your application, you should see full, all, and any province consideration. And that means you're considered federally as well as provincially. And go ahead to your next question, Miriam.
Okay. I have a question here. I think I'm reading this right. Is there any off-campus work application assistance? So I read that as, is there support in finding jobs off campus? And if that's not what you intended, please feel free to send in a new version of that, but go ahead and answer that one for now.
So there would be support for sure on the Fredericton, Saint John, and Moncton campus to help you applying for external sources of employment. And if the question is from an international student, I would also recommend the International Student Advisor's Office because they have phenomenal peer supporters and just are really good at working with students. So I always recommend them. And I'll just give you a quick email as ISAO, and that's I for Igloo, S for Sam, A for Apple, O for October, isao@unb.ca.
Awesome. Are there any scholarship opportunities for international students?
There are, and Miriam has put my PDF in the chat. Feel free to take a look at what's available. And I mentioned when I was doing the presentation that scholarships are forward thinking. And what I mean by that is you always have to apply the year before you need it. So that might be helpful for next year, maybe not so helpful for this year.
Awesome. Is there, or are there any bursaries for part-time online learners?
There are, and I know Heather in her presentation spoke about part-time support. In the Fredericton campus, we also have part-time support, and those bursaries are administered through our College of Extended Learning. So I think the easiest thing would be just to give you the email, which is cel@umb.ca. And if people find that very, they want to know exactly what's available, then send an email and we'll send you the direct link.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, sorry. What supports are there for students with neurodevelopmental disorders like autism? I can jump in there and let folks know that we do have a student accessibility office that's able to support in a variety of ways, as long as you have your documents. So I would recommend reaching out to them first. We do also have some other supports that are open more broadly to folks, like a learning strategist who can help you figure out what study skills are going to work best for you, other kind of time management skills and those kinds of things, which is available to all students regardless of documentation. And then of course, there's all sorts of other health and wellness resources on campus that we're happy to connect you to. So if you have specific questions about who to reach out to or that kind of thing, you can reach out to UNBF orientation at unb.ca and we'll refer you to the right place. But please do make sure you let us know if you're looking for Fredericton resources or Saint John resources, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person.
And so, Miriam, they might have been asking that question because it relates to the Canada Student Grant.
Yep.
So the Canada Student Grant for students with disabilities, so you have up to $2,800 for a living allowance and up to $20,000 that can support technology, can support assistant learners, help you with tutoring. Like there's all kinds of support that you can get from the loan and grant program. And I personally have been volunteering with disabilities for a number of years. Learning disabilities is kind of my bailiwick. So you can certainly reach out and I can send you some community supports as well.
Awesome, thank you. I got a question asking if there's a link to a recording of previous Zoom sessions, such as the June 7th business Zoom session. I would say reach out to the business department. That's not something that we would be hosting, so we wouldn't have that link. But if you reach out to your faculty specifically, I'm sure they would have that if they recorded. And if they don't, I'm sure they'll be able to answer your questions. The next question here, is there interest on New Brunswick student loans after the 6-month period after graduation?
Well, you'll be going into repayment at that point. And the short and the long of it, as Heather and I will tell you, is every July 1st. So what is as of right now may not be the same as when you go into repayment. So as of right now, if you graduate it, you'd be fine. But by the time you graduate 4 years down the road, I really can't say, because every July 1st, the government changes. And if the government changes, program parameters may change. So if you graduate it right now, you'd be golden. If you graduate 4 years from now, I cannot tell you. So
I can elaborate a little. Is my son is in university. In the first year, he had a student loan and he pays interest on that first year. Now, they just came into play this last November, I believe it was, that students now had interest-free loans. So he still pays interest retroactively for the first portion of his loan. But going forward, because of this change, and it's happening mid-degree, he will have interest that he does pay, but for some of it, he may not. So, and that can change again, like Shelley said.
And that did come into effect November 2022 for New Brunswick student aid only. I really don't know. 4 years from now, I'd like to think, fingers crossed, the government will continue it.
All right, I have a question. Is there merit-based scholarships for part-time students with a 3.9 GPA?
So it really comes down to the definition of what part-time is. If we're talking 2 or less, you would go to the College of Extended Learning. If we're talking, it's still always worth having a conversation with undergraduate awards, even if you're only taking 2 courses, because you'd still be considered full-time as a student with a disability. So I think it's still worth having a conversation with awards, AWARDS at unb.ca. It's definitely worth having a conversation with Heather and I, because Heather and I consider full-time according to the government student loan guidelines. So you could apply for bursary support through both of our offices. Well, you can't go to, Fredericton and Saint John at the same time, but you would be open to apply for either one of us.
Okay. Okay. Would the experience we get from work study and co-op count as experience after we finish university?
Absolutely. And I will guarantee you, and I think Heather will echo this, my daughter started working at work study in her first year, even during the pandemic. So she was one of the lucky ones who started university during the pandemic. And that experience and the references and the valuable work experience has led her to a tremendous amount of work opportunities. So absolutely 100%.
There are statistics that say if you can find work while in school in your field of study, you have a very high chance of being offered a job when you graduate, or having that experience will give you that leg up on others in the workforce when you're applying for jobs at the end of your degree when you graduate.
And I think Heather and I will echo, it's the critical thinking that everyone's looking for. The MBA student that I hired, she actually was a mature learner who was a banker in India. And I really, like, I don't care what your background is. I really care that you're a critical thinker and can learn statistics and research and analysis. Go ahead.
Okay, can I get the link for the merit-based scholarship for international students? Would that be in the international student package?
It
All right,
would.
so it's already there. And if it didn't come through for you, the documents that I put in the chat, please reach out to UNBF orientation at umb.ca and we'll send you the documents via email if they're not coming through via Zoom. Are there any forms of payment plans or fees must be paid in full?
Absolutely. So financial services, so their email would be fin, and I don't know if you want to type this, Miriam, fin, F-I-N, serve, S-E-R-V, finserve at umb.ca. So you can reach out to financial services and you can arrange a payment plan with them. And they're the same. They just want to know proof of how you're going to pay. They don't expect you to pay everything up front. And I'll let Heather give her email for Saint John, but FinServe would be for Fredericton and
It's the
Moncton.
same.
Oh, it's the same.
It's the
Sorry.
same for Saint
All right.
John as well.
Excellent.
And they are really great, even if student loans are delayed or they might be waiting on documentation. Like sometimes they'll extend your deadline or they will work with you on a payment plan. So they've been really wonderful for a lot of students.
And I will tell you, in support of financial services, a lot of people worry about reaching out to them, but I will absolutely 100% guarantee they want to work with you. They want you to stay as much as you want to stay.
That's right.
Okay. Is it too late to apply for Fredericton scholarships?
It is too late. However, it never hurts to send an email to awards@umb.ca. And remember, for bursaries, which is what Heather and I both offer, it's not too late. So we give bursaries during the year of, and in reference to scholarship or merit-based, you can certainly reach out to awards, see if they will put you on a waiting list or consider you for January scholarships.
I'm recognizing that we're past time. So I just wanted to let folks know there are definitely some questions here that have a lot of nuance and specifics about your individual experience. So I'd recommend reaching out to one of the two emails that I just posted there. And I'm sure Shelley and Heather will give you a much more clear, like, your answer for your specific situation. So please reach out to them with those more specific, nuanced questions. And yeah, I'm sure they'd be happy to help later on.
Absolutely.
And then let me see. There's lots of questions around work study. There is information out on the website about that, and there will be more as September gears up. But I don't know if you folks want to speak to work study a little bit, what that means.
So work study is 100% in the Money Matters, and Heather and I basically have similar programs. You work no more than 10 hours a week at $16.47 per hour. I will 100% guarantee it's still a competition. You're still competing for jobs. You would still be better served to reach out and do one of the workshops Heather mentioned, resume writing, interview techniques, things like that are going to give you a bit of a leg ups because you're still competing with other students for the jobs.
And they are all posted on the Experience UNB platform. So you have to be a registered student with your UNB credentials to log in to actually view the jobs and apply. So you can't apply before coming to UNB.
Yeah. All right. I'm seeing a lot of questions about residents specifically. So I'm putting the residence admin at unb.ca email in there. Please reach out to them. They will be able to answer your questions. We don't work specifically within residents, so we can't answer those questions. But I know that they'd be happy to get back to you. So reach out to them. And yeah, that being said, if folks have any questions, will there be another similar Zoom? There will be another Zoom session happening in August. It won't be about financial aid. It will be about how to pay your fees and what to expect from orientation in that first week of school. So do keep an eye out. That will be called Arrive and Thrive. There will be an email sent out just like there was for this one. And there will be information about it on the website closer to August. It'll probably be mid-August. So please look for that. We really appreciate everyone coming out. Yeah. Thanks so much. We're going to have to close it there. We're already 11 minutes behind, but we really appreciate all the great questions. And if your question wasn't answered, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer. And I'll put that UNBF orientation email in there again in case you have questions and you're not sure who to ask.
Can I just mention, right now I am fully booked for the next week and a half. I will definitely answer questions. Just be patient. I will get to you. I'm the only person in Fredericton and Moncton. So as Miriam will let you know, sometimes I get behind, but I will answer.
Same for me. I mean, I obviously, we always prioritize students, so we get to you as quickly as we can. But just be patient, send us an email, and we will do our best.
Awesome. The chat is no longer letting me send you folks the email. So please just respond to or use the email that's in the emails that we sent to you at UNBForientation@unb.ca. And we'll be happy to send you in the right direction. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.